say 3 inches, I mean
3 inches? What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Redefine Our Prime. My name's Chris.
I'm Ron.
And today we're going to talk about Chapter 3, The Case of the Missing Lifeguard.
Ooh.
Right? It sounds scary.
Yeah.
But I love how this episode opens up with what Ron just did, right? He said 3 inches. He means 3 inches. But Max is actually in there. They're having their sleepover. And they decide to play a game, kind of like Spin the Bottle, but instead of kissing, it's spying. So Eleven's using her powers to go and look at where these people are depending on who it lands on. And it lands on first...
Mr. Byers, right?
Is it Mr. Wheeler?
Wheeler. I meant Wheeler, yeah. It lands on Mr. Wheeler, and then the girls are like, boring. And then it lands on Billy, and that's exactly what Mrs. Wheeler, right?
Yeah.
What Mrs. Wheeler felt when, with her husband versus Billy.
Yeah.
How her husband's boring and Billy's really exciting.
Yeah, I love how when you made that analogy, because I didn't think about it like that, but it actually shows that not only is the mom thinking that, but even the kids are thinking that. It's kind of, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So she ends up going in there and spying on Billy and seeing a lot of things that really set her off. And they're like, we need to figure out what's going on here, right? So they start having their own little case. They start investigating it. And when they're looking through the house, Billy and Max's house, they find the lifeguard pouch that Heather was wearing. So then they take the next step. They go to the lifeguard stand, find out her name, and then they're like, okay, let's try to search for her using Eleven's powers again.
Yes.
And when they do that, that scene was really creepy, right? So she goes there, she sees the red door, goes in, and then it shows, and I love when Eleven's in that, like, middle realm, whatever you want to call it, where it's like the water, it's all black.
Yeah,
and
it's
only
like the loading room.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so creepy. And they see the bath, and it's got all the ice, which reminds you of when Billy was like seeing in the ice. So I guess that they have, the monsters have something to do with cold, right?
Yeah.
And then it just shows the girl pop up, say "help me," and just get dragged into the upside down, and that was filmed beautifully.
It was pretty good, and I believe you said to me how Elle was like, "Is girls screaming?" And then Max goes, "Oh, there's girls scream with Billy all the time, but they're not sad screams; they're happy screams, right?"
Yeah, that was so funny. I love it. Like, just shows how innocent Eleven is, right?
Yes.
She's like, I'll let you see my mom's Vogue magazine sometime, and I'll figure it all out. So then, with their, like, other things obviously happen in the episode, but just to kind of close out Max and Eleven, so they end up going to Heather's house to check on her because Eleven's positive that something's bad happening to her. Mm-hmm. And when they get there, they walk in, and who's in there? But Billy's sitting at the table having, like, he's schmoozing with the parents, right? Having a great dinner, laughing. He seems fine now. He's not sweating anymore. There's no, like, inner conflict. He looks...
But all is not
fine.
what it seems.
Right. So then Heather walks out, totally fine with cookies, and they kind of shoo off Max and Eleven, and then it shows that they were not just sitting there having a nice dinner. The mom got drugged, you see the pill bottle, and it looks like they're prepping to take Heather's parents to the monster's well.
Right. Good.
Creepy.
Yeah, very much.
So now let's talk about Hopper and Joyce. So, you want to...
Okay, yeah, well, Joyce stood up Hopper on their little date.
Yep.
Right, and she was actually with the students, the teacher, learning how electromagnetic fields work.
Yep.
And she finds out that it has to be a machine that's really powerful.
Yep.
And when Hopper confronts her about it, she tells him this, and all he heard was that she was with Mr. Clark.
Yeah, I love
it's like,
that.
Really? That nerd?
I love that.
Yeah, so that I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That's all he cares about, and he's seen some pretty weird things too. So you'd think that he'd kind of be more believable.
He makes that comment too. He's like, God forbid people just move on and move forward. Right?
Yeah.
Like, he's had enough. He wants to try to get back to.
Do you
normal.
also think that he meant with like Bob too? I mean, you move on from her relationship with Bob.
I honestly don't know if he catches that yet, because if he did when she froze. So long story short, she wants to go to the lab too because she's positive that the people are back. So she just kind of barges off and he's following her. And when they first walk in, they do a flashback to Bob's death, and it shows Hopper just moves on, but then Joyce is kind of frozen as she's reliving that moment. And he looks at her and it's like, what are you doing, more or less? So that's why I don't know if he really connects how much Bob meant to her.
Yeah, maybe not.
But so they go and start investigating. They see that all of the holes and all the secret parts of the lab were kind of like they were closed off. And he even said like he watched them do that himself. But then they hear movement, and he goes checks that down. It ends up being the Russian guy that we saw in I think it was the last episode, right? He was in the mayor's office. He kind of walks past where they cook with that biker helmet.
And he kind of beats up Hopper a little bit, doesn't he?
Kicks his butt.
Yeah.
I was afraid he was going to die, though, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. What's interesting about that is the Russians, maybe they're trying to get some of the Hawkins lab technology. They're trying to, like, scout out, like, for their machine, maybe.
True.
Yeah, so maybe they're not quite there yet. They've definitely tapped into the Upside Down, but maybe they're just not at the level Hawkins lab was at. Right. But it was nice to go back to Hawkins lab and see that and call back to seasons 1 and 2.
Yep. And they do, like, the whole... They do little flashes of it. Remember when this happened there, when this happened there? Yeah, exactly. That was good. But then, so he doesn't die, and Joyce sees the guy on his bike, so I'm assuming that they're going to try to track down whoever that was in the upcoming episodes.
Let's get to Dustin and Steve.
Yes, my favorite, the dynamic duo, and Robin. So there's the trio now.
Yeah, I like Robin too, but I love their the way they greet each other, and I love how whatchamacallit, they're how can I say, spying on people in the mall, and Dustin's just like, you are the worst spy ever, because Steve's like looking at
watching at the girl he likes.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
And remember, we called it in episode 1. We said that we think that Steve's going to end up with Robin, and Dustin says it too.
Dustin called it too.
Well, maybe you should just open your eyes and see you have the perfect girl right in front of you. And then he's like, no, you take advice from me. I don't take advice from you, kind of whole thing.
That's right.
But when this is going on, the spying's happening, Robin cracks the code. Right? So she's sitting there listening to music, and then it comes to her, and she's like, oh my God, I got it. Runs out and figures out that this
she
whole
sees
thing.
the Chinese place in the food court, sees the clock and it
the
all.
shoe place.
Yes, and that's probably, maybe it's like a conversion point, because all these things are kind of in the same spot.
Yeah, it's like here, yeah,
maybe.
So she figures it out. It's at the mall. The mall is the area where these
Ground
people
zero.
are. Yep. And then so they kind of do a little stakeout later, and it's a huge storm, and they see that the Russians are there with guns, and
I love when Dustin, he's just like, looks like they're armed to the teeth. It's like, he just sounds like he's like a spy or something. But then like once things get real, like they show their true colors, and they're just kids and they're scared.
And they actually make a noise, and when they jump back, Steve and Robin. Telling you, it's gonna happen. But then they run inside. They figured it out. It's happening at the mall, and so we'll see where that takes them into the next.
I kind of want to relate this real quick to the other boys, Mike, Lucas, and Will. Mike and Lucas, they're all about girls now. They've moved on from D&D. They just want to date girls. They want to make out. They want to, all that drama. That's what they're into. And you got Will, who he kind of missed out on the last seasons 1 and 2 because he was too busy being possessed or missing. So he kind of wants to do all this childhood stuff, but they've already moved on from that. Yep. So all he wants to do is play D&D, and he doesn't understand what's going on, and he doesn't want to grow up. Yep. Whereas the other two are progressing.
Yep. And he tries his best. Like he wakes them up. They start going through, but then the second the phone rings, Mike thinks it's Elle, and he runs to it. And he ends up just kind of having a breakdown. Like, I'm done. You guys aren't interested, and he runs, and they try to track him, but he goes to Fort Byers and ends up having this real just breakdown moment where he sees the pictures, and
that was his place of sanctuary when he was trapped in the Upside Down too. So that's pretty powerful. And Dustin, he makes a great point. He's like, "Do you guys even care where Dustin is right now?" And you know what? Dustin has kind of moved on too. He has a new friend, Steve, and they're bonding. They're doing their own thing, and that's so true for real life because you got a tight group of friends, but not all of them are going to stay together forever. They're going to branch off, meet other people.
But sometimes you do.
Sometimes we do, yes. But we had a group of 8 guys, and half of them went and did other things, and it's all good. You know?
But so I hope that this is a big jumping point for Will too, because in that scene when he's tearing everything down, and he looks angry, and he looks kind of strong too, and then he has that tingling in the back of his neck, and Mike and Lucas finally just goes, he's back. I really hope that for him is he's now going to become this strong character to help. He can't play D&D with his friends, the fake, but he can become Will the Wise and be a hero in the real world against these monsters.
I agree. And let's just finish off with Nancy and Jonathan. They're on the case.
Yep.
They see the old lady eating the fertilizer.
Yeah. So they go back to try to get proof because her bosses are like, we don't care about your story. You're a kid. You don't know.
They're a
what
little
you're
overdoing
about.
that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like they're really overplaying that, like, sexist joke thing. It's like, all right, enough already.
Yeah.
There's no way a 40-year-old guy would say that to a 17-year-old girl over and over and over again. Whatever.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens. So they go back. They end up finding the ladies now eating the fertilizer, not the rats. So I'm assuming that little rat monster went into the old lady. But who knows? It's just everyone is on the same case, just not knowing that they're
exactly.
on the same
Just
case.
like seasons 1 and a little bit in season 2. Yeah, you got Nancy and Jonathan investigating the rat stuff.
Yep.
You got Joyce investigating the electromagnetic
Magnets.
field. You got the boys who are doing absolutely nothing except girl stuff. You got Will who's onto the mind flare, right? And you got
Max and 11.
you got Max and 11
Billy.
on the Billy, and then you got Dustin and Steve who are on the Russian case, and that's all going to converge. You know it in a few episodes towards the end.
Yep. All right, guys. So let us know in the comments what you thought about Chapter 3, The Case of the Missing Lifeguard, and where you think this is going. And we'll see you back for Chapter 4.
Keep binging.
3 inches.
No.